Success does not show up in a day. In fact, it may not show up in a week or a month, but it can show up if you believe in yourself and if you put the time in. Today's video is not about telling you that today you are going to be the best player ever, but what it is telling you is 17 highly effective habits that will actually make you a better player if you put them into action. Now, this is a duo video. It's something that I'll tell you, but you have to put in. You have to engage. You have to mentally be stimulated to watch this and get the value, and you've got to take it all in. So the onus at this point will be up to you, but I can guarantee that if you do what I'm saying here, if you follow these tips and you use the new firing range, which is amazing in Apex Legends, to your degree of benefit that you can, you will be a better player in Apex Legends. By the end of the week, you'll be a better player today than you were yesterday, and you will be a better player in a month from now than you ever thought you could be. But that's all up to you. Today, we're gonna go through very quick 17 habits and tips, so pay attention, stay connected, leave a like if you enjoyed this, comment down below anything I might have missed or that you wanna see, and let's get into it. Now, the first thing to do in this new firing range that can improve your game instantly is to practice different scopes. All of these things are laid out for your pleasure, so why not go ahead and practice them? I mean, you run into many points in the game, right, where you're playing, you get some bad loot, and you don't even get a scope. Maybe you get an iron sight. Practicing what that looks like here will prepare you for that in game. You'll see all of these tips translate to what you're going to be experiencing in game. Things like a G7 Scout can operate on a 1 to 2 times scope in an HCOG format, or they could do a variable scope. Do you feel comfortable hitting shift and getting to that 2 times spot when you're usually at a 1 times? Is that something that you've even built in? Do you like the 3 times, or is it too far? Can you hip fire with it accurately? All of these things are situations that when you pick that scope up, you then have to be able to manage. And if you haven't practiced it, why would you be good at it? That's like getting mad at yourself for not scoring a goal in a professional soccer game when you never played soccer in your entire life, or football, or American football, or basketball, whatever it is. If you don't have the skills practiced, you won't be able to do it. Secondly, let's talk about the barrel differences. One thing in Apex Legends you'll see is that barrels are a huge part of looting. Going from no barrel to white to blue to obviously purple, which is epic, and then legendary changes your weapon significantly. But how so? 10% recoil reduction and randomness is decreased by 15%, and randomness is decreased by 15% when you have a white barrel stabilizer. That goes all the way up to 20% of recoil reduction and 30% randomness decreased when you have a legendary. However, that doesn't mean that you're always going to get one. Practicing for the best case scenario doesn't always mean that it's going to happen. So make sure that you practice what it feels like to have basically no gear, what it's like mid game when you're slightly geared up but you haven't had a late game fight, and what it's like to actually go ahead and use the best of the best so that you're prepared for all those situations. Thirdly, understand stocks. Now, I'm using a G7 Scout Sniper right now, and I'm switching between my R99 and my G7 Scout, but you'll probably see it a little bit more on the R301. Now, stocks allow you not only to reduce some of that sway that you get, that aim drift that happens right when you go into an aim down sight, it will reduce that from 15% to about 35%, but it also improves the quickness with which you swap and take down your weapons. Many people say in Apex Legends, press 3 to run because you drop your weapon down and you start sprinting. The faster the stock you have, the higher level stock, the faster you'll be able to put your weapon down, but it also means the faster you'll be able to switch, which essentially means more damage per second in a fight. You run out of bullets with one weapon, you're able to switch to the next. Understanding what those different stocks do will mean that you're not waiting for that weapon to come up when you're used to playing in the training mode with only legendary stock, purple stocks, whatever it is. You'll understand that, okay, I'm not there yet to where my switch isn't going to be as effective, so I need to make sure I'm geared up before I start playing like what I'd like to, as far as kind of trying to unload both of my clips and expect to get out of this fight alive. It's a very cool thing to practice, and most people don't even know that that's what stocks do. They don't help you with your your weapon doesn't shoot easier or anything like that, but it does mean that you'll get that other weapon up faster, which essentially could mean more damage for you. Now, let's talk about barrels. Shotgun barrels, these are, bolts. Shotgun bolts are a big difference in Apex Legends, and what they actually do is interesting. I don't see this mentioned a lot, but essentially the rechamber rate of when you can, you're able to fire and put those chambers back into the shotgun allow you to shoot faster when you're having a higher level bolt. This was recently nerfed on the Peacekeeper, and by recently I mean a few months ago, but it was nerfed exclusively on the Peacekeeper to bring that down a notch. However, the other shotguns, the Mozambique and the EVA 8, are still operating under the same kind of pretenses. Essentially, the Peacekeeper went from about, I believe, like 20% to like 13%. I have the notes here myself. It was about 25% to 16% at the high level, and of course 10% to about 7.5% as far as a rechamber rate. Now, one thing that you will also moving on to the next tip, is that when you're using things like a Peacekeeper, that's probably because it's the weapon you like to use from a shotgun. But what you should also do in the training mode is use unfamiliar weapons. This is something that I think most people don't do. Maybe you don't like to use a wingman, so you never practice it, you never pick it up, and then sometimes you just get killed by it every single game. You say, why am I not there? Why can't I do that? Because you don't practice it, you don't pick it up, you don't feel confident, and why should you? If you never practice it, you won't do well with it. But this is an opportunity to make sure that you have that in your wheelhouse. I like the idea that sometimes you do have to understand that yes, practicing weapons that you're not good at is sometimes a waste of time, because why not just get great with the R301 if that's what you love? Why not get great with the longbow if that's your cup of tea, the triple take if that's what you like? But if you practice unfamiliar weapons, you also mitigate the risk of when you get a looting situation. That means I don't have that longbow. I don't have that R301 that I love. I've got a flatline. Now, if you spent time using your hip fire, you've spent time kind of managing that throughout, and maybe pick one weapon a day. Choose the flatline to practice as an unfamiliar weapon. Don't do it all at one time. That's brain overload. That's mechanic overload. But then you could check it out. Maybe it's the hemlock the next day, and you find yourself really getting into a good rhythm. Now, the other thing to look to practice is familiar weapons. Maybe you want to combine that with the idea of trying to practice familiar weapons and some mechanics like crouching in fights. Crouch shooting is one of those things that you do often see in Apex Legends at a higher level, where people are shifting their hitboxes to make themselves smaller and more compact in the middle of a fight, so that it's not just shooting at their body. If you shoot at their head and they crouch, you will miss your shot completely. Obviously, this condenses you, so a big Peacekeeper shot could destroy you if that happens, but using it in a way to throw your opponent off of their aim is very, very good tactically. However, you do need to practice. So that's one of the things that I believe you should be looking at here in this video. Excuse me, guys. I just had some tea. I don't know why I'm burping because of tea, but I love you anyways. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this type of video. It's pretty fast, pretty quick moving, and I hope these tips are actually very helpful to you. The next thing that I want to talk about, and I believe this is our number 8 tip, I believe, is that you do need to look at weapon combos. Now, I've done a lot of videos on the fastest weapon combo, the most OP weapon combo, the best weapon combo, unusual weapon combos. Finding your go-to weapon combo is really good, because you may never know when that turns out into your optimal loadout. Everyone essentially tries to mitigate where they land. They try to find that same spot that they land, and then they try to find their optimal loadout. That's what battle royales are. You try to minimize the RNG at a high level, because the RNG is the thing that makes a bad player beat a good player, right? The randomness. He gets a gun, I don't. If you practice with a loadout that you experiment, say it's a wingman like you've been seeing, where you try and get that couple of shots and then go into a hammer point P2020, you could find that, so when you get it in game, it becomes that X factor for you. The next thing to practice, the number 9 tip, is the recoil. Now, you can see in recoil, again, I played a hero shooter. I hadn't touched recoil in a game really my whole life. I had played on controller, and that was when I was a lot younger. I'd played MOBAs before that. Obviously, Paladins, the hero shooter I was mentioning, didn't have a lot of recoil in it. It wasn't a lot of that mechanic going on. It was more about the abilities and the positioning and timing and overall game fight sense. But as you can see, recoil is a huge deal in Apex Legends. That's why you see so many great players being Counter-Strike pros, Shrouds and Dizzies. These guys have played games that require you to understand to minimize the recoil, and you can see not only the way that I'm moving my arm against the recoil pattern. If it's going up, I'm moving my hand and my mouse down as I shoot, but also when you find these barrels, it makes a huge difference in minimizing the reducing the recoil that you get and the randomness. That's another big thing, randomness. Apex Legends has introduced this. They introduced it to the flatline, randomness in the recoil pattern, so that sometimes it'll just spray off to the right. Even though it's a straight up and down recoil, it'll just do that. Practicing that means you'll be more prepared and obviously perform better in your games. Now, the next thing you need to practice is moving, shooting, jumping, and sliding. This is a huge tip because Apex Legends is not your family cookie cutter battle royale. It is fast. It is high velocity, high speed, high octane, you might be able to say, in terms of how it manifests itself. And so, although it's nice and pretty to stand here and shoot at dummies, you do need to practice what it's like to move. Do some similar movements that you would do. See if you're hitting shots or if you're missing. Do you find that your movements contribute to you missing a ton of shots? Like, are you doing a consistent jump, slide, hop, and turning to the left and whiffing a lot in the training range? Well, you're probably doing that in game as well. So try to not only do it and practice it, but see if it's not working. And if it's not, shift it. Try to build new habits while in this training range so that you can go out into the game saying, I've done this a million times before. I've been a professional athlete in my life. I've basically spent so much of my life training and teaching the power of visualization that I know that if you guys try to visualize what a real game scenario is, you'll be able to do that. Now, let's take a look at aiming. This is one way to practice the two different types of aim. One of the biggest types that I find people either struggle with or don't really understand exist is aiming for tracking. Tracking is one of those where you're using a weapon like an R301, you're not having a single fire, you're having a consistent fire, you're moving, maybe the target's moving, and you're keeping steadily your basic red dot over their body. It allows you to be more effective when you practice this skill and hit more of your bullets if you stay methodical. A lot of people I find overcorrect on tracking, and one of the ways you know you're overcorrecting is if you try to do something like this, but you're constantly off target. If you're constantly going to the right, but you shoot past it. If you go to the left and you shoot past it, you may need to lower your sensitivity, which we'll talk about in just a second. Now, the second part of aiming is flick aiming. Flick aiming is a totally different skill, and you could practice that here as well. But to understand the differences between tracking aiming, tracking is obviously much more consistent. You can actually hold your red dot over somebody and move with your A and D keys and not even really move it, whereas flicking is all about moving your mouse to try to find that angle quickly. Some people find themselves flicking to up and right, some do up and left. I know a lot of people do down and right, but it's really up to you. You have to find your viability of where and how you like flicking. Some weapons do require more of a flicking motion to be as effective in close range. Some people don't even like to flick, and they pretty much track everything that they do. It's not necessary, but it is a skill that will help you, especially in fast and close quarters, fast situations. So it might be good to practice here. Even going from ADS to non-ADS into hip fire, trying to adjust that, move quickly, and try to get some of those flick shots off. It's not just a highlight reel. It actually does make a difference if you're able to practice that. And the wingman, probably the best weapon to practice with it now. I could also suggest a longbow. That would be very good. The other thing to check out, let's talk about number 13, is your sensitivity. Test what types of sensitivity work best for you. In all my years of playing all these different games, I found that I never really trusted my sensitivity to be where it needed to be. I'd change it constantly, I never felt good, and one of the things I noticed is that you do need to find and commit to a style. Whether you like high sensitivities, where my dad has like 3200 DPI on his mouse, what you just saw me initially and what I'm at now is 1600 DPI. What I was at is 1600 DPI. When I switched that down to 400, I found my flick shots, as you can see now, became much more reliable. So for me, I'm much more used to playing on 400 DPI on my mouse with about 1.8 on Apex Legends. You have to find your right DPI for your rhythm, and that's one thing that is so important to test because, I mean, it's your aim, right? It's a shooting game, it's your aim. That's what you need to figure out. Now, number 14 that I really enjoy you guys having a chance to look at here that we've never had a chance to do in Apex Legends before is testing character combinations. Things like Bangalore and a digital threat, sure, that's great, but how often do you get that in a game? Well, now you can have it at your disposal whenever you want. A digital threat with Bangalore into the smoke, you can set up situations that you might be having occur in real moments. Also, you may just be trying to test Octane. What's it like to use his stim, run at somebody, and try to shoot? Do you miss more? Do you hit more? I notice I miss more. I don't know what that is. As you can just see there, I hit that stem and I just couldn't hit my shots. It came off and I did. So I may need to practice my Octane using the stem and hitting shots that normally would feel good, because now I have to tell my body and my brain to use this kind of situation in a different way. Like, hey, I'm speeding up. My shots aren't the same. I may have to slow my shots down, or I may have to correct to the left or the right. Those are great skills to be able to adjust. And the fact that now you can choose different legends means that you can handle those nuances to the best of your ability. ability. You know, what's it like to set up mirage decoys the right way? Do you know how to set up crouching decoys? What is it like to throw it all the way across the map versus close? What if you stand still next to it? And can you set up these different moments to where you take advantage of what Apex is all about? Abilities and characters. That's what I love about this game. It's that hero shooter, but a battle royale. It's really something special. Now, the other thing that I think that we also need to look at as we finish up just using that stem are the care package weapons. These are things that are naturally very difficult to find, and you almost never grab. I mean, L-Stars, you see every streamer never really grab an L-Star. It does it a disservice because it's a pretty good weapon, and it recently did get a buff. But say you do grab it, would you even be able to use it well? Probably not, because you don't really grab it ever, right? It might be a one-off thing. You might put yourself in danger, and that situation keeps snowballing. Well, I'm not good at it. I don't use it. Then I'm not good at it because I'm not using it, so I'll never pick it up because I'm not good at it because I don't use it. So here you can actually practice these things, and you can even set up situations, like I said, with legend combos where you throw an Octane jump pad out, then you turn into Gibraltar, and you see what it'd be like if you're a Gibby, that's your favorite character, using one of your teammates' jump pads with an L-Star. These are situations that you can create in your mind, or maybe something that, hey, I just died in this moment with this weapon, let me try it again. Now, here's number 16, which is one of the things I think most people don't understand and don't know how to do. It's rope bunny hopping. Now, this is a skill that you can use by holding E and pressing jump. Also, kind of angling yourself as I am and jumping upwards, and maybe even moving backwards with your S key so that you kind of try to stay in one place. What this allows you to do is not only stay at a high vantage point, but use a zip line in a final circle to get above and stay above the people who are fighting below you. We've seen this used in Apex Legends community tournaments, and of course even high-level tournaments like at the X Games to actually win rounds multiple times. Now, obviously, once that became obvious, people started looking up, but at the end of the day, it's still a very good tactic, and in your pub games, you will be able to, if mastering that skill, obviously be able to do really well in those tight in-game circles, probably even in ranked. It's a really cool skill, and honestly, I think it's something that I think you guys are going to enjoy. Now, obviously, moving on to our next tip, you want to test real-life scenarios with your dummy. Throw that Gibraltar shield out. You have a chance to kind of peek and poke like you do. This is how I die with Gibby all the time. When I throw my shield out, I get melted, and unfortunately, it's because I haven't really practiced these nuances. If you go into the mentality of I'm going to practice how to maneuver around my own abilities in situations that I die constantly, you are going to be better when you face them. It's just a matter of fact. You know, if you spend 20 hours a day doing something, or you spend even an hour a day doing something, let's not say 20, that's a little crazy actually, but let's say you spend 10 minutes a day doing something. When you get to a point where you need to show that skill off, if it's been a month and you've already spent 10 minutes a day doing it, you're going to be prepared. It's like studying for a test a month in advance, or even a week in advance, 10 minutes every single day. If you're studying one question, you're going to keep being more and more prepared when that answer is needed to be given on a final test. Now, studying, goals and things aside, I know some of you may be in school, some of you may not be. I think overall, it's a great point to mention that practicing not only what you preach, but practicing what you want to achieve in Apex Legends is the biggest thing. In life, you do not get opportunities that you're not meant for, that you're not ready for. You, right now, have never been given anything that you can't handle. So it's no issue that, you're still here, you're still watching my videos, you're still playing Apex Legends, and maybe you don't have what it is that you want yet as far as an outcome. But if you pay attention to this video, you look at these tips and you practice these specific 18 things that I talked about, you will not only be able to perform better each and every day. As you do this more and more, you will find your confidence grows. You will find your ability to see situations that you've never seen before goes down. You'll have seen them all. You'll have practiced them all. You'll have been prepared. So when somebody pushes you in the middle of your Gibraltar shield and you need to get that 1v1 poke and peek battle, you're going to be better than them. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoyed these tips, and hopefully I kept it entertaining and interesting for you, and you learned a little bit along the way. If you did, please leave a like, share this with your friends who may need it, subscribe for more. We're getting close to that 300K, ladies and gentlemen. You could be the 300,000s. Go ahead and support. And as always, my friends, never give up, never stop gaming. I'll see you all next time.